Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're tuning into the show. Welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. You guys know the deal. We are retired New York City police detectives and 9/11 World Trade Center first responders. If you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you get all things DutyRon and this guy, my partner, Ed Wallace, when we go live or upload another video. Hey, today we got a great one for you. We have a special guest. We're going to talk Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt. Do body language analysis. We're going to go over a lot of different things here today. We got some videos to show. But before we get into it, Ed, how you doing? I know you're excited about this next guest.
Oh yeah, very excited. Because I got to tell you, like I said, off camera, these two women scared the bejeebus out of me. And when I look at them, my spidey senses go off, my hair starts rising, and I just feel evil.
They emulate evil. And that's the thing, is like, we are used to interviewing and interrogating and getting people in the box, as we call it, right? Into the interview room. When we talk to people, we get that sense. And we, over the years, we can smell this. And these two, I mean, they just reek evil, and just, we're going to get into it with
And you know how I feel about kids.
Oh,
When you hurt kids, no, I'm not having any of that. And you made my list.
Yeah, it's a special kind of evil. Let's say thank you to the Patreon supporters, the channel members, the live chatters, our mod squad, the moderators. You guys are what makes this a great place. We give you guys thanks and praise each and every day, because you got the hardest job out there, keeping the chat classy. And thank you to the replay viewers, the folks who hit those super thanks and the super chats. I call them super love. So thank you for the super love. Let's go right into this thing. By a show of hands in the chat here, who's familiar with Dr.G Explains, his YouTube channel? He's got lots of videos. Dr. G is down in Georgia. He's a great interviewer. He talks to his audience. He's interactive. We love his professionalism. A lot of people in the chat it's going crazy, Ed. Everybody knows him. Everybody knows him.
So if you know him, and even if you don't, subscribe.
Exactly. Subscribe to his channel, because he's very close to that 100,000 subscriber mark. He's going to hit it. I know he's going to hit probably 1 million before the end of next year or something, maybe sometime into 2024.
Then he gets that platinum plaque behind Ron's shoulder.
Yeah. This is for the 100,000, but the 1 million is gold. So we're going to try to get him to solid, to that gold bar. But let's play a little piece of some of his video. This is his latest video. I'm just going to play a small piece of it for those of you who may not be familiar with Dr. G. Here we go. Let's let it play.
Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and body language expert, and today we're going to be analyzing more behavior and body language from Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt. I'm assuming that if you're watching this video, you probably already know that both of them have been charged with felony child abuse. What we're going to be looking at today are numerous videos from the Connections classroom, including ones on love and pain. Before we get started, a couple of quick things. Wanted to remind you that this is not a psychological evaluation of any kind. I'm just providing my opinions based on publicly available information. In addition to that, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go. We're going to start today by watching their video on pain. Let's just jump right in.
So what is pain? Is it bad? Is it wrong? Is it something to be avoided? No. Pain is an opportunity for growth. It is a place where you can gain wisdom about your experience, and it is an opportunity to grow.
So essentially, they're describing pain as a positive thing. I want you to keep that in mind as we continue to watch this, because you really have to be able to watch a lot of this in context to be able to make sense of how they see it and how they use it.
Like, have you ever heard, like in the gym, no pain, no gain? That's what pain is for. It's an opportunity to develop, to stretch, to motivate yourself.
Now, in terms of the body language right here, one thing that I've seen is that Franke doesn't seem to be as excited by pain as Jodi Hildebrandt does. And so oftentimes when she talks about pain, she does this. Watch this right here.
No. Pain is an opportunity for growth. It is a place where you can gain wisdom.
So see, now she's looking intensely at Ruby saying it's a place that you can gain wisdom. the way that it seems here is that she is talking to Ruby. It's almost like, in my opinion, sort of keeping her in line about these things, saying pain is used this way and this way and this way. I think the dynamic between them is that Jodi is the teacher, Ruby is a student, and Ruby is the one who continues to learn and grow based on what she's learning from Jodi. So that's oftentimes how she takes this information. And Jodi, I think, sometimes wants to keep her in line to make sure she's listening.
So there you have it, folks. I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a teaser of what he does on YouTube, and he covers so many different cases, but this one he's really on, and he's doing a lot of videos. So Ed, without further ado, let's bring him in. Without further ado, our great friend Dr. G. Thank you so much for joining. Oh, wrong button.
Welcome, Dr. G.
You got
Thank
it.
you so much for having me. It's really exciting to be here.
You know, Doc, I was telling you before we went live, I have a website. I know you do too, and it's all linked in the description here. Ed and I get so much feedback from our subscribers, our friends, our audience, our community. And I received probably close to 50 messages from different people saying, hey, you got to go over and check out Dr. G. So it's a testament to what you're doing and what you're providing for this community. In the true crime genre, there's just so much stuff out there. There's so much good, bad, and everything in between. But when I went over and caught you, I actually caught you live. I was like, this is great. We had a whole 2 days of wet weather and we were raining. I was in on a Friday night and I was like, let me get in here. I subscribed, beforehand. I saw you live, and it was great to just chat with you a little bit. Could you just explain to the audience how you got involved in this field and a little bit of your background, Doc?
Sure. So I'm a clinical and a forensic psychologist. I've done and what that means, clinical is like therapy, things like that. Forensic is more things related to court, evaluations, competency, that sort of stuff. So I've got about 2,000 forensic evaluations under my belt. I've also got, I was in a counterterrorism program for a couple of years. I've also got an MBA. So I've got these really broad, sort of interesting experiences. And what I do now on YouTube, in addition to my daily clinical work, is I analyze body language and behavior from current cases, trials, old cases, serial killers, all sorts of stuff. And this Ruby Franke case is a little, Ruby Franke Jodi Hildebrandt case is a little bit different because usually I'm analyzing interrogations and trials and stuff like that. And this obviously is something that's a different kind of scope, but that sort of gives you an idea of what I do and a little bit of who I am.
What I really enjoy too is that you explained in one of your videos that you worked before you were licensed. You worked for a company that contracted your company to do some of the evaluations for child welfare for CPS.
Yes.
So you have a really vast background in all of this stuff that we're speaking about here today. I wanted to just quickly ask you, because I want to go back to this video because there was a couple of great analogies that you made when you were referring to Jodi Hildebrandt and this cult-like atmosphere. I wanted to just get the elephant out of the room because everyone's talking about this and it's all over the internet. People feel like this is cultish. I want to just put you on the hot seat and get your thoughts on that, Doc.
Based on what I've seen, and I've seen a lot of these videos at this point, because if you've seen them on Facebook, they are voluminous. There's even ones that I haven't watched, but I've seen dozens, probably a dozen or more hours of it at this point. And the way that they frame things, it is, and part of what I did in the counterterrorism program was cults, actually. So I'm pretty familiar with this. And a lot of the way that they frame things feels very cultish to me. Like I'm sure there may be people that would argue it on the other side, but yes, in terms of like, they redefine words. One thing that I say on this video is up is down, left is right. They tell you to abandon your instincts and follow what they say. Like, I know it feels wrong to do this, but this is what you should do. And so it's sort of reprogramming in a sense in terms of a lot of what they do. And I walk away feeling confused sometimes after half an hour. I'm like,
exactly. When I first looked at it, I said, these people are indoctrinating them. They are breaking them down because I tell people all the time, if your gut is telling you something, go with your gut. Never disregard your gut because your gut is typically correct. And these people are taking, as you said, up is down, left is right. They're turning people's worlds upside down with their manipulation.
I want to go to a part in this video that you play here. This is, again, the same thing that I was showing. This is for Ruby Franke, Jodi Hildebrandt on the love, pain, new weird behavior and body language video that you just put out. And this was the analogy, and it's going to get the audience maybe a little bit of a chuckle, but you set this up so perfectly, and it's going to resonate with a lot of people here.
They became connections.
Behaviors, and they don't have truth, because you can't be doing that and live in truth. You cannot do that and live in truth. So I am not interested in getting into a tug of war around political issues. I am not interested. And what I am interested in is you. I am interested in you.
So to me, this sounds like a fake voice quivering to make people affected and to feel connected. This is something we've seen somewhere else, and I'm going to show you that in a second. But Jodi Hildebrandt right here is making her voice quiver. Maybe it's possible that she really is that moved at the idea of helping people. But oftentimes when I've seen people do this, particularly in introduction videos and that sort of thing, it's a way to draw people in. Just like when we smile, we hope other people reflect that smile. The idea of tearing up and creating an emotional moment that is not real is another way to connect with people. Let's watch this again. I'd be curious to hear what you think, to see if you think that this is real or not.
Into a tug of war around political issues. I am not interested. And what I am interested in is you. I am interested in you.
That's a not for me. I want to let the rest of this play, but that was so great that you pointed that out, because some of the people in the chat referring to it as crocodile tears, as just a ploy to pull you in and make you think that she's a real human being.
And if you're vulnerable, it might work on you. And that's
right.
I'll talk about that later, but vulnerable people are the ones that are going to get sucked in by it. So,
And you know who I've seen do this time and time again are your proficient con artists.
oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a lot here. And I played more than what I wanted to, because I didn't want to just go right to the little bit of, I didn't even find it comical, but I think some people may find it comical when they see who you make the reference to here. So let's just play this, because I love this part.
I love you as a sister.
I'm not trying to make a joke here. This was my genuine first reaction. Just watch this cult leader talk for a second.
This is as scientific. This is as true could be, but you have to know me. You have to trust me. You have to believe me. Some can know me now. Some can even know me
There it is.
for the first time when they see this tape.
It's the same sort of voice quivering to connect with the people that they're talking to. Now, obviously, there are sometimes people that are talking that genuinely get choked up. It's not like nobody ever actually feels that level of emotion, but it certainly didn't seem real when Jodi was doing it, and it definitely isn't real when Doe from Heaven's Gate is doing it.
Perfect. I love it. I love it.
And they even did the same pointing gesture, too. I mean, it was almost exactly the same.
Ed, what did you think? I don't know if you ever saw that. I don't think you saw that, Ed.
No, I've seen these kind of things before, especially like on infomercials, right? They're trying to sell something, right? These are great salespeople, right? And they're trying to sell themselves, and in this case, their methodologies to help you with your marriage counseling, and all of this stuff. Again, she's no different than a con artist.
Right. Yeah. Hey, Doc. So we saw so much from Jodi Hildebrandt with this connections, but prior to this, we had 8 passengers, right? There was 2.3 million or more subscribers, and Ruby Franke and her husband were running around in their daily life, this family vlog thing. So she was doing this for quite some time before Jodi Hildebrandt came onto the set.
Yeah.
Do you think that is that Kara, Ed, or is that?
That's Kara.
I love it. So if my question is that Jodi Hildebrandt comes on the set, do you feel that Ruby Franke had this ingrained in her, and Jodi Hildebrandt just came and cultivated more and intensified this line of thinking? Just curious.
That seems very possible. Based on everything that I've seen so far, that's been my hypothesis. If there's more information that disproves that, so be it. But it does seem that once Jodi Hildebrandt came on the scene, that the behaviors that are more objectionable got worse. But somebody, the vulnerabilities that people have can be different. Some people just want to connect with somebody. Some people can be lonely. Some people can have it in them to behave that way and then just have to have somebody else say, yeah, go for it, do it. And that could have been the case with Ruby and Jodi.
Yeah. Ed, any thoughts on that?
No, that makes perfect sense. You know, they're feeding off of each other, and you know, she's validating what's going on here, and therefore making the what may be, I mean, in my opinion, just making what normal people wouldn't do easier to do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody in the chat said, and I think it was our good friend Sharing Creates, and I love to keep and pay attention to the live chat. That's what this is about. Without you guys, this is not a live show. Sharing Creates says, under the guise of the church leadership. Yeah, I mean, listen, again, I'm going to say this because every time I go into this aspect of it, you know, I get the people that come at me, but you know, if you want to come at me with this, I'm good for it, because this is the thing. Anything in an extreme form or fashion, or, you know, pushing extremism is dangerous. We know this. It's not just about Mormon religion. It's not about Islamic religion. It's not, you know, we look at these different religions. Catholic is the same thing. You have some people who go to church every Sunday and pray and do what they do, and then you have some that are over the top. And this is what we're talking about here. These people are over the top. And Jodi Hildebrandt,
It's anything in life. It's not just religion, and that's why when you take a civil service exam, like typically back in the day, they used to give you an MMPI, you know, a Minnesota multi-phase exam, and you know, it has two polar ends, and they want you to be in the middle of that. You know, when you're answering the same questions 1,000 times.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. Doc, I wanted to get maybe some of your thoughts. Like, you know, we're sitting here giving hours, but that's the reason we have you here, is because you're the professional. Anything that you could give to the audience to maybe better understand how this was able to happen? And, you know, it seems like this is not something that just happened with a light switch being turned. This has been a long progression. Any thoughts on that?
One of the things that has to be there, assuming that what's been alleged is true, or if any of those things are true, that would require someone to be sadistic. The vast majority of us are not. We do not like seeing other people in pain. But one of the things that's a common theme amongst their videos is abandon love, abandon making people feel good, move towards pain. I mean, that just is a constant theme for them, it feels like. And so I think that if you have a sadistic streak and you have power and you have a platform, that can be a very dangerous thing, because that's someone who enjoys the pain of others, like in a very real way. Most of us can't fully appreciate the idea of enjoying inflicting pain on someone who's vulnerable. Most of us find that very aversive. We should. Our brains are programmed to find that aversive, but some people don't. And for the people that don't, it can be very scary once they get a bit of power and once they have the opportunity to teach people, and people are listening to them and paying them and saying, yeah, we want to know how you do this. We want to know more about you. And then that can be a scary thing. So I think a sadistic undercurrent is required.
And we also heard from the niece, Jodi Hildebrandt. She goes on in interviews, and she's done multiple of them with the Mormon podcast. I watched a 3-hour video that she did in a couple of different sit downs. But Jodi talks about 14 years in the past of Jodi Hildebrandt exhibiting this type of behavior with duct tape and restraining. And look, if this young boy, Russell, 12 years old, didn't get out of Jodi Hildebrandt's residence, I think, and this is my opinion, and I know, Ed, you'll agree with me on this, that we could potentially have a death on our hands of not just one kid, maybe more, because we know that two were there, or possibly a third. Jodi Hildebrandt had command and control of these people. And your thoughts on that, Doc?
Yeah, when I did evaluations for, well, not for, but when I was contracted with the Department of Child and Family Services, I did many evaluations, and this one stood out in terms of when I listened to the 911 call, what they were describing. That stood out to me as exceptional. I mean, I've worked with a lot of really tough cases, but this one would be one that was extreme by any standard. So I would definitely be concerned based on if the reports I've heard and what I've read is correct. I'd be very concerned about their future health and safety.
Hey, Doc, I'm glad you said that you listened to the 911 call.
Mhm.
What was your take when the boy is in the background with the caller on the phone saying that it was his fault that he was in this situation?
That message has probably been given to him for his entire life, and so I think that he probably really believed that. And I've seen that before when people. The worst is when somebody reports or like if somebody's in school and they tell somebody about the abuse, and then the defects intervenes or whatever, and then they blame themselves. They carry this guilt around, and it is really hard to work with them on that guilt because they've had a whole life of learning, like, if there's problems, it's your fault. You're responsible for me feeling good, and it is your fault that all this bad stuff is happening. You deserved what you got, and that's a lot of them believe that. So, if this kid was tied up or whatever it is that they were doing, he probably thinks it was because of something he did.
Yeah.
And
How long does it take to indoctrinate somebody into that belief?
if you have somebody who is really manipulative and very good at manipulating people into those kinds of things, probably not very long, actually. I would say that the vast majority of people that I've been around that have had that experience have, it's usually a family member or somebody who's been around for a long time. But theoretically, few months, a year, you could really have somebody believing some pretty bad things about themselves.
And
if
I would imagine,
if it's a
yeah,
child,
exactly.
it happens quicker, right, Ed?
Right, yeah, that's what I would imagine. If it's a child who's
Yeah.
more, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because if it was presented to some of us, our response would be like,
"Oh, hell no!"
But with a child, they're going to be more apt to accept
Yeah.
that. So, yeah,
Well,
because he was so calm, cool, and collected
Mhm.
with his verbiage there, and when the way he verbalized it, I was just like, I was expecting to hear him, but he was just like, it's my fault. It was really.
And that's exactly why I'm really concerned about the extent of what he must have been through. Because clearly if he's saying it's my fault, yet he still asked for help, I cannot even imagine how bad it actually was. I mean, it really is painful to think about what he must have been through. And I don't think any of us can fully appreciate it either. I think we hear these things, but I imagine it's probably from his experience, probably worse than any of us really probably can conceive of.
My heart bleeds for it, for this kid. My heart bleeds for all the children involved here, and even the adults that she damaged.
Yeah, very sad. I mean, and you look, Doc, you could look at this couple, this neighbor who took this kid in. They have to be traumatized as well, because they also made statements and words to the effect of, she's a really bad person. I think that they had knowledge of what she was doing, maybe not full on when you have a 12-year-old standing in front of you with duct tape on his hands and on his ankles and open gaping wounds. And now we hear that their medical treatment involves cayenne pepper and honey, and there's all these people that say, oh, that's a holistic approach. Bullshit. I mean, excuse my language, but that is hogwash.
Yeah. Capsaicin on an open wound is going to not feel good, and that's everybody would know that, right? So
in 91, when we started in the police department, that's what we used on our gun belts. That was cayenne pepper spray, and then we switched to a different a different kind of spray. But that stuff gets into your eyes or into your bloodstream. It is no good. It's not going to be. It's not going to be.
My mind is racing because I'm thinking of like some of the controversies back during the early days of our war on terrorism, and the controversy with enhanced interrogation techniques and so forth that were used on prisoners. And I was never, when I read the techniques and everything that I've learned about them, listen, torture doesn't work. Okay. Eventually to stop the pain, you can get somebody to say anything.
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of this, I'm looking at the kid and listening to what he's saying, and a lot of it just reminds me of that.
And that's actually basically what Jessie, the niece, had said, was eventually you just sort of give up and say, fine, like, I did it, whatever, like, just leave me alone, make this torture stop. So she, in a very real way, acknowledged that very thing.
She even said in her interview, Jesse, she said that Jodi convinced her that she was addicted to pornography and that she was masturbating. And she admitted that she never watched pornography at that point and never masturbated. She didn't even know what it was. And,
they have a video. I'll just keep this brief, but they have a video on sexuality on their Facebook. And that is disturbing because basically it says that making your bed is sexual, doing yard work is sexual, everything is sexual. And so once you convince people that everything is sexual, then you can restrict anything and everything. And so that's very much, when Jesse was talking, it sounded like they hypersexualize things. And when people hypersexualize, that's a reflection of themselves. That's not a reflection of the person. So I don't know what's going on with the hypersexualization, but that video is concerning. I decided not to even review that full one on my videos because it was it's pretty hard stuff to digest and talk about.
Well, maybe we'll do it on this channel and you could come on and you could be safe. You could feel safe here. But yeah, so I'm just kidding.
I don't want nightmares.
Yeah, no. Again, I want to go to the chat. So hashtag Dr.G, hashtag Ed, hashtag DutyRon. If you have any questions, I'd like to go to some questions. But now we're at that second half here. We're almost at the 30-minute mark. I wanted to ask you, Doc, you had I sent a couple of correspondence back and forth, and thank you for sharing your contact information with me. We had a couple of conversations back and forth via email, and you had mentioned that one of the videos on the connection site was the Love and Pain video. It is it's a little bit of a lengthy video, and I wanted to just get before we start playing it, to get maybe your take on why you selected this one for this show.
So this one is, well, it's actually two videos. What is love and what is pain or something. But this one's about love. And part of why I chose this one is this one shows, when we talk about that more cult-like behavior, this one is basically them telling people to abandon their desire to love, and what feels like love to them is not love, and you can't act in that way because it's actually the opposite. It's actually hurting them to love them and all of this stuff. So this gives you an idea of the dynamic, how they play on each other. It also shows, if we watch, depending on how much of it we watch, shows how Jodi seems to be very jealous of Ruby. And that's my interpretation. Maybe that's wrong, but that's how I take it. When Ruby talks about her success, Jodi just seems to be seething. So
I'll watch as much as that you want. It's 36 minutes. You had mentioned to me to start at the 3:30-minute mark, so I have it at 2:40.
Yeah.
But I wanted to go to some of the chats real quick. So Colleen, who's a good friend of the channel, she's a subscriber. She says, "Hey, Dr. G, are Jodi and Ruby sadomasochists?"
I mean, I associate that with sexual behavior. I don't know. I don't know if they're sadomasochists or not. I mean, because sadism is enjoying the pain of others. Masochism is enjoying pain yourself. And I don't have any impression that either one of them particularly enjoys pain personally. So it's always possible, but I don't have any reason to think that specifically.
Right. I think maybe some of those line of questioning from people would come from the poor child, Russell, seeing that he was all bound up and he was emaciated, so withholding food from him and so forth. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah.
So, but that covers the sadistic part. The masochistic part would be that you enjoy being hurt, and I don't think they do. So,
yeah,
I think they like hurting other people.
Yeah, they definitely like hurting others. Ed, you see anything in the chat, because it's just flying? And
I know. There was a reference there to an '80s pop song. What is love, baby?
Right.
Don't hurt me, baby. Ding ding ding
Yeah.
ding. Yeah.
We're not going to do that here. Okay, so do you want me to start this from the beginning, Doc, and I'll stop it as we go along? You can direct me. I'm your.
Probably the most interesting part is probably the 3:30 to 12-minute mark, or 3 minutes to 12-minute mark, and we can stop it here and there and I can just talk about what we're observing or what I'm observing.
Okay, I'll set it up from the 2:40-minute mark, because they set up what's the meat and potatoes at that point. Is that okay with you?
Doesn't matter to me. Yeah,
you're the boss. You're the boss here right now, Doc.
Let's do it. Yeah.
All right. So this is just to set this up. This is December 27th of 2022, just 8 months prior to Jodi Hildebrandt and Ruby Franke being arrested. The 8-passenger channel, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it was still up. I don't believe it was when she was doing these videos with her. I believe she took it down. So this was December 27th of 2022, 8 months before the arrest. Oh, I got to put the volume on.
Well, emotive and distortion, you did a great job of explaining what emotive and truth looks like. Emotive and distortion means I'm being dishonest. I'm wanting to control. I'm going into it wanting something for me. I'm going into a situation where I want to take from you, and I'm going to call it love, but really I have an agenda. Any kind of manipulation, lying, deception, irresponsibility, pride, all of that is in a deceptive motive.
Right, right. So you're probably sitting there thinking, okay, that sounds great. And we're going to start giving you examples of what that actually looks like in real life. And my hunch is you may not follow us through all of the examples. They may trigger you and say, that's not true. I'm loving when I do that. And what you have to do is look at your motive, because we're going to give you examples of people who have motives that are in distortion, though they claim that they're in truth, though they claim they're in love.
Yeah. So as you listen, are you willing to put aside your feelings? Are you willing to put aside the chemical hit or all of the hormones that are going through your body in what you would call a loving situation, and really assess, is what I think love in truth, or is what I think love is in distortion?
Yeah, exactly. And that's really challenging, because I just saw a commercial. Somebody showed me a commercial about a little girl who was playing in the back of the car with a toy, like an electronic toy. And
Like on an iPad or something.
Mm-hmm. And it took batteries. And the dad was concerned that the batteries would run out.
Did you see the way she looked at her when she?
Yeah, she did not like being interrupted.
No, she didn't, right? Like that oh, it cracked me up a little bit, because yes, the hostility that bubbles under the surface with Jodi is just palpable sometimes, right? Like it's interesting. Part of what they're setting up, in my opinion, is that this sets up the parent to be in absolute control, and to say, if you show caring, if you show love, and it's not exactly how we're saying it, then you are damaging your child. Then you are. They use the terms truth and distortion. This is where the more culty stuff comes in. I'm starting to dislike the words truth and distortion because they use them so much.
But, but one of these people is a licensed therapist, right, with the degree in this and studied. What is the other person?
Yeah.
So what gives her the right, or the, how does she become a subject matter expert in this?
And I'd like to know who's working that camera. So there's a third person involved in this craziness. Someone zooming in and out. So yeah. But let's let the rest of this play. I watched this whole thing. So you gave me a homework assignment, so I watched it, Doc.
So he went into the grocery store to get more batteries, and he was deciding which batteries to get. Should I get the real, powerful batteries that cost probably more? And then he had this image in his mind, like, oh my gosh, what if the batteries run out? And she starts kicking the seat. She starts throwing things out the window, and she starts rubbing her chocolatey hands all over the car. And he's like, oh, I better get the real powerful battery so it doesn't run out on my daughter. And we would laugh and we'd say, wow, that dad's super loving. But really, his motive was all selfish.
To get what he wanted. And so the whole commercial is saying, if you get the more powerful battery, then you have more control over your daughter. So power and control equals love.
Love.
Love. If you can.
Anytime you want me to stop, you can just tell me.
Okay, well, that's a good place to stop, because part of what they're doing, though, is that they're saying, don't do things that your child would enjoy, like letting them play on the toy or whatever. They don't provide alternatives to that. They're just saying don't do that. And so that's part of what it is it's experienced through suffering or through disliking things. And it's the examples over the course of the videos get worse and worse at times. So that's one of the things that's hard with them, is that seeing them in context with all their other videos, really, every time you hear certain things, you really start to understand more how seriously and severely they mean some of what they're saying.
And it could be arguably at this point that Russell is being starved slowly by them. We don't know when this all started.
And one thing you'll see, and we don't need to do this today, but I can just tell people if they're curious. If you look at the videos over time, the ones that are more recent, they look way worse. They look very stressed. They're not smiling as much. Their bodies are a lot stiller. In terms of their body language, it changes dramatically. So presuming that by July, because that's when some of the more recent videos have come out, if this stuff was going on then, we very much could be seeing the way that they were reacting at that time. So they seem very different more recently than they did in their older videos too. So
Yeah, that was a great observation there, because I did look at the very last one and I compared it to this, and it was definitely a difference. You could see a different dynamic with
Yeah.
them, and a lot more. It was on Jodi's side. She was not, not happy with a lot of things that she was saying.
Mhm.
All right, let's let this play. You could tell me to stop at any time.
yeah, okay.
Control your daughter not to scream. If you can control her to do what you want her to do, well, now you're a loving parent.
Right. And what you would say is, I'm controlling her to be happy.
What's
I'm
wrong with that?
Trying to her to be happy. I don't want her to not be happy. And so this is where we're encouraging you. And we're both parents. We understand children and children's happiness.
So one of the things that you'll see, she's being very sarcastic when she talks about children's happiness. Like she's trying to say, like, oh, people just want to make their kids happy. That's when you see the body language. She gets emphatic with all of that. And there's ways, and we don't need to try to do this now because it'd be hard to pause on the right time, but you can see a look of disgust on her face at times when she's talking about the happiness. And that's one of the things that you catch, because in terms of body language, just as a quick aside, there are basic facial expressions that match up with certain emotions. We all do them. They all basically look the same. So when somebody like wrinkles their nose and has their mouth pointed down, that's a look of disgust. So you see that flash on people's faces sometimes when they're talking about things they don't like. It's easy to know how they feel about it. That's part of reading body language, is that stuff leaking out. And you'll notice when she talks about people going through harder times, or talks about enforcing these rules or things that are more about inflicting pain, that's when the smiles come out too. Watch when if you want to see Jodi smile, those are the times
When they talk about the pain. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so sickening. But this is the case. The great part about this, and this is what people don't realize, is investigators get to look at this,
Mhm.
and this is them documenting the way they operate.
Yeah.
They are giving their playbook out to the people who are now investigating them. And that's one good thing about this. Ed, I know
One of the things I keep thinking of, like, she would be a great study in her childhood. How did she grow up? Where did she get these belief systems?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'd love to see her diaries. If she ever wrote any personal notes down growing up as a kid, to see how did we get to this.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dr. G, we could do a whole nother show on her husband as well. Like, asking the questions of how do you not see your kids for 13 plus months? How do you not want to go and see them, or even FaceTime with them, or know that they're okay? I have big problems with that. And that's, again, for a whole nother show. But let's let this play, because as you said, it gets worse as it goes along.
Yep.
And how, so many of us, our whole life's goal is to make. What we're actually doing is being in distortion and inviting them into a controlling dynamic.
Well, I know when I was greatly living in distortion, when I would say, I want my children to be happy, what I was really saying is, I want my children to not bug me. I want my children to not interfere with my agenda. I don't want my children to interrupt. And it takes a real humble parent to admit to that and to see that, and then to change.
Yeah, exactly. So we're inviting you to reconsider your definition of love, and how you manifest love, and how you speak in loving ways, and make sure that it actually is love, because love will always be telling the truth. It will be responsible. It will show self-respect, and also self-respect for the other person. It will always reflect the truth, the reality. So for example, I was telling Ruby, my daughter had a birthday the other day, and she was choosing to behave super selfish. And she and I were conversing, and I said, wow. And this was on her birthday. I said this, wow, I am really sad, and it hurts my heart to watch you behave so selfishly. And Ruby smiled like, wow, you said that on her birthday? And I said, yeah, I did.
Look at how Ruby Frankie smiles on that one, right?
They're both just joyous at the moment, right?
I just inflicted pain. Look at me. I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's that's really what we're seeing is, saying, yeah, I did it on her birthday. They're giving examples for people and trying to say, this is how you should do these things. And I know it's not going to feel right. And I know you're saying maybe there's something wrong here, But if you want to live in truth, to use their terminology, that's how you got to do it. And if you're not, you're hurting them. I mean, that's the message too, is that if you don't do things the way we're telling you, you're being controlling and you're hurting them. That's literally what they're saying.
Yeah. Where does she come up with these things? And what peer-reviewed work, a body of work, backs anything that she's saying up?
Well, the frustrating thing is that certain words she pulls from psychology, like in cognitive behavioral therapy, there's cognitive distortions, which is ways that like anxious people might distort reality a little bit. But she's not using it in that way, and she's making me dislike the word. So it's really
she's taking a word that has a specific definition in your field, and she's manipulated it to mean something else.
Yeah, you have a cognitive distortion. You don't live in distortion. That doesn't make any sense. It's strange.
Now, this also, it seems scripted to me. That I think they have a teleprompter in the background. I mean, they're using PowerPoint and so forth, but I think, the way it looks to me is like they have a production studio here. Somebody's back there filming them, but there also seems to be a script running in the background that they seem to be looking at. Or is that just me?
It could be. There could be a teleprompter in front. They're both wealthy people, and I'm sure that they have just top-notch equipment or whatever, or have somebody in the background there or paid. But you know what? I saw immediately what you just said, Doc, is that they both lit up like Christmas trees. They were, I'm going to put it back 10 seconds and you could just, folks, look at them now, how they're so smiley and happy. But I'm going to go back to 10, 15 seconds before this and look, let me just go back a little bit more.
She was choosing to behave super selfish, and she and I were conversing, and I said, wow. And this was on her birthday. I said this, wow, I am really sad and it hurts my heart to watch you behave so selfishly. And Ruby smiled like, wow, you said that on her birthday? And I said, yeah, I did.
Unbelievable.
That also reminds me of the thing I saw with her saying we're not celebrating Christmas this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she did the same thing.
This behavior is very consistent throughout their videos. It really is.
And she's like, good job. High five. Because I love my daughter. I love my daughter. And because I love my daughter, I am not interested in fulfilling some selfish agenda of me wanting to make sure that she, on her birthday, is not upset with me. I will always reflect truth to my child. Always.
Truth is always loving, and the world might look at you and say, wow, Jodi, that wasn't very loving, especially.
Just to translate just very briefly, what she's basically saying is that I'm always right no matter what I do. I mean, that's the message, is that, yeah, okay, I would never do it. It would be harmful to my child not to treat her that way on her birthday. So I'll always do this. So
amazing.
Wow.
And she started the little the motion, getting broken up, like
she can just activate it at any time, I guess.
Sickening.
Reflect truth to my child. Always.
Truth is always loving, and the world might look at you and say, wow, Jodi, that wasn't very loving, especially on her birthday. I have an example of something really similar. So to give you a few more characteristics of what is love, love always invites a person to their true selves. Love has growth. Love has fruits of truth. Love invites peace. Now, it doesn't mean your daughter's going to choose that.
Hey, Doc, I know you have like a sound gate and stuff on, so when you're asking me to stop, sometimes I'm not hearing it.
Oh, okay.
So if you can, just maybe talk on it to stop it. Okay. So I wasn't sure if you wanted me to stop it there at that point.
No, but this is a good place to stop. So here's one thing. I'll go ahead and let you know what's coming. What I want you to watch in this next part, I want you to watch Jodi as Ruby talks about 8 Passengers and all of her success, because that's really, for a minute, you're going to sort of get to see Ruby reliving all the stuff that she got and sort of bragging a little bit about all of how amazing it was to have 8 Passengers. What you're going to see from Jodi, what appears to me, is just seething jealousy. No smiles. Just watch her breathing, because, and I talk about this in the video a little bit, but when your heart starts pumping harder, like when adrenaline starts coursing through your body, you got to breathe faster to keep up with it. So when people are trying to sit still and they're angry or they've got a lot of adrenaline, they have to breathe faster because the body's using up all that oxygen.
Yeah.
Watch Jodi's breathing. I don't know if it'll be easy to see or not, but watch her breathing during this scene.
I'm gonna put it up. I'm gonna put it full screen. But I saw Ed when I had you full screen. Ed was like, "Yes, agreeing." Yeah.
It goes back to comfort and discomfort. Okay.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm gonna put it full screen without us on, so everybody could see this clear. And then when you want me to stop it, just right up on it, because I have a noise gate too, and sometimes if you don't talk loud enough, then I wasn't able to hear you. All right, so here we go, full screen. And she's going to talk about the freebies that she got, like how there's packages on her porch. This is right, Doc?
That's it. Yep.
All the packages and free vacations. And Jodi definitely, as you said, is seething.
because she has agency and she has choice. However, you were inviting her into something creative instead of inviting her into destruction. So the example I want to share, I thought was loving. However, the fruits of what I was providing for my children, the love I was offering them, was inviting them into destruction. So for many years, I ran a YouTube channel called 8 Passengers. And in doing so, we found a lot of success. We were one of the very few who made it big, and we had a lot of views, a lot of eyes on us. And as a result, companies would send us their products. We had every day, our porch became a plethora of Santa Claus.
I got to stop it because, oh my God, she's not only breathing heavy, but she's getting fidgety as well.
Yeah. Watch her mouth, all of it. Yeah. I mean,
And
it's
the
all-
eyes. Look at the eye movements.
Mhm.
Oh my
She is
God.
effing twisted right now. That was a good catch, Doc. How many people in the audience, put a 1 in the chat if you caught that? I'm gonna play it back just a little bit. But if you caught what Dr. G pointed out, the heavier breathing, she made that very conscious. She looked right at her like she was just like, what? When she first started going into the whole thing, she gave her that look of like, ooh, like she
Right. And this also appears to be ad-libbed off script.
Oh yeah, this is definitely off script.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it again. This was so good. I want to see it again.
A lot of eyes on us. And as a result, companies would send us their products. We had every day, our porch became a plethora of Santa Claus. We had shoes sent to us. We had vacations given to us. We would travel the world for free. We were given, we'd go to the movies and people would recognize us and they'd give us free popcorn and Slurpees. We had free, you name it, from clothes to toys to games to vacations to, cars and like you name it. It was just given to us. And I thought, wow, look at what I'm providing for my children. I'm giving them something I never had as a kid. I'm providing them with so much. Isn't that love? And I thought for many years it was loving. Now,
let's stop right here.
Fruits.
So what you're seeing now is now that she's getting to the point where she's going to be talking badly about her kids, now you see Jodi really lighting up. Hey, it's that's so now that we're moving out of the phase of her talking about everything she got and how bad all of it was, that's where the relief comes. It's almost like her letting off steam, like, okay, I can stop now.
Yeah, we got through this hardest part that I can't stand.
Yeah,
she was able to do this,
mm-hmm.
and it wasn't me.
Yeah.
The fruits of love, again, they bring creation. They invite a child to know who they are. And I saw the fruits, and
she's still breathing heavy.
They weren't so fruitful. They were rotten. That the axiom, they were spoiled rotten. My children were spoiled rotten, and it came out in their attitude.
Do you think she was saying to herself at that point, and this would be speculation, that Jodi Hildebrandt was saying, "I'm going to fix your kids. I'm going to fix them for you."
Always possible. I mean, it's
This is a special kind of evil.
Yeah,
I wouldn't put it past her, because look at what happened. Fast forward to 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
8 months now, here we are in the present. You got this kid showing up emaciated, duct taped, tied down, handcuffs recovered, all kinds of craziness. This was maybe part of the catalyst that got her going. Who knows?
Yeah.
we're almost at the 10-minute mark, so I'll let more of this play. What else do we got coming up here, Doc? Can you brace us for what's next?
I'm trying to remember what's right after this. I mean, it's sort of her wrapping up her story on all of this, and I can't remember exactly what's coming on next.
All right, well, we'll see it together.
It came out and I'm bored. No kid had more toys or games at their feet than mine, and they were bored. How
Which means selfish, by the way.
how is that even possible?
Right. Well, bored gets translated into, I don't want to stimulate myself. I don't want to create for myself. So you stimulate
Well,
me.
because it takes effort. They didn't want to put in the effort. There was no effort in receiving all that was being just sent to their porch magically every morning. Who's going to open the boxes? I knew it became a problem when there were boxes on the porch and nobody wanted to open them anymore because
Wow.
they got bored with having packages come to the house. So I did what a true loving mom would do. And I said, no more. I'm not going to do this anymore. Who says no to free packages, gifts, money, vacations? Someone who's truly loving.
Yes. And I can be a witness. I watched this woman say no. And many of the world would say, well, she had some help saying no. And the truth is, no. She could have gone right back into that world and developed the same thing. And she saw what he was doing to her family, to herself, and to her children. And she desperately wanted to send a loving message to them and stopped.
Oh, well, I've seen this go that direction with other families. And I knew the only thing that it would take would be give the kids what they want, give the cell phone back, apologize to the children, film it, make a really big video showing that the kids are put first.
So
And
let's stop
I
right there.
knew
It does show the superficiality of it. Like, she's actually telling us exactly how she thinks about this stuff, right? Like that it's all how fake all of it is. And she's just sort of putting it out there for us. So we know exactly how Ruby Frank thinks about this. She's telling us. And so we need to listen to people when they tell us things.
And this was kind of the way she was throughout. I mean, in her videos, she was telling the kids, well, you didn't bring lunch to school, so now you're not going to have lunch. If you don't wake yourself up, I'm not going to wake you up. This is a little child that she's talking to. I think that was Eve that she was making those references to at 6 years old.
Yeah. So there's one last thing I want you to see on this video that I think it comes up in just a minute, and I'll let you know when it happens. It's you're going to see when Jodi is going to talk about somebody. I can't remember how she phrased it, but basically she references somebody that Ruby knows, and Ruby does not like it. You're going to see her lean back for a second. There's something there, and we don't know what it is, but I just want you to watch this interaction because I think it's very interesting.
Excellent. Let's go.
the game plan to get back to what it was I had.
Which is called distortion, by the way. All that manipulation would be called distortion.
It would be control. It would be manipulation. It would be deception. It would be because I wanted something. I wanted to get back what I've had. I've watched many people do this, and I knew what it would take. And I slowed down. And this is what we're inviting you to do: is slow down and consider, is what I'm doing really, truly loving? Or is what I'm doing because I want something out of it?
Yeah. And there were people, and I would say people who were close to you, that were inviting you very strongly to go into that deception.
Okay.
So something about what she was saying, really, Ruby did not like that. I'm not really sure what that's in reference to. Only they know, but there was something about that dynamic, something that Jodi knows that she said to Ruby. And like, Ruby does not usually lean back. Usually they're very close together. They're very tight knit, but there's something about that. Yeah. I don't ever want to hear distortion again either, or truth. But it was something about that interaction that, and if you look at the look on Ruby's face, she's not happy with this. She's usually all smiles.
Yeah,
something about that is not good.
This is not a good look right here. This is, she's 100%.
She's taking control in some way, and I don't know specifically what, but it's weird. So.
You know what I see? Wait till the camera's off. Boy, do I got something to say to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
To deceive all of you and say, we're sorry, so that you could, is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a real shocker that I didn't go that direction. It was a real shocker that I didn't apologize to the masses. And I thought, well, there's nothing to apologize for.
You know what I noticed too here, and I'm thinking like of all of this stuff. Ruby Frankie's not even wearing a wedding band here. She's married, and this is 8 months ago, right?
Never even noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, she's not wearing a wedding band. This is what detectives do. We look at things, right, Doc? But and then I went back to some of her other videos,
Yeah.
and I saw her wearing the wedding band when she was with the husband, and she was arguing with the administration at her child's school about TikTok dance.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Right. And he was fully engaged with her.
Yeah.
And this was before this whole, 12, 13, 14 months, they've been split. Was she living full time at Hildebrandt's home? Was she traveling that 260 miles, 69 miles north back to her home? But in this video dated December 27th of 2022, there's no wedding band on her hand.
It's funny. I just had assumed that she was living there. I don't know why, but it like my brain just kind of assumed because of the, I guess, of all the videos they film and the dynamic. I kind of assumed she was, but I have no idea.
Yeah, it's a 4-hour drive. Ed, go ahead.
Is there anything that we can take away from referring to her children as the mouses?
I mean, I didn't even catch that, but basically, when you describe kids in that way, particularly in the, some people can have fun with those kinds of things, but it also, in this context, objectifies people, right? It dehumanizes people when you talk about them like that. So, yeah, it's
amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So we're at the 12-minute and 44-second mark. I'm not sure. Is there any more to this? I
mean, there's more of the same kind of stuff, but this gave you a good snapshot of some of their interactions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've all seen enough of this. I want to go to the live chat and say thank you to everyone who's here, who's hanging out with us and putting your questions in. So many good questions coming through in the chat. But I also want to say thank you to the people who will replay this. Dr. G has his own YouTube channel, and I'm going to pull that up now so everybody can take a peek at it. But first, I'm going to go on to your website, if that's okay with you.
Yeah,
is it all right? I can show that.
Yeah.
So this is Dr. G's website, and it's pretty informative. He talks about the body language, the therapy, the courses that he has available. Is this stuff online, or is this all at your office?
No, well, yeah, it's all online.
Okay, great. Yeah. And also I have his YouTube channel is right here. I'm hoping that everybody goes over and subscribes. He's at 90,000 almost subscribers. So yeah, let's help get him into that 100,000 subscriber mark. He does do live videos too, but a lot of his stuff is, the videos that he puts out, edited versions, but he does have a section here where he goes live. Do you have a schedule for that, or you just wing it?
I'm just doing it every couple of weeks right now. I'm trying to do it more. It just depends on how many people want to watch it. So yeah.
I love the fact that you love UFC. My youngest son is into it with all that stuff, and your Brazilian jiu-jitsu and boxing. You're into stuff like that, so that's pretty cool. That's what you do in your spare time. Look, guys! Whoa! I just saw this. He did a Delphi video.
Yeah, on why I'll go ahead and tell you my thoughts on it just briefly. I mean, I think that the idea that it was white nationalist extremists is. It doesn't make any sense personally. So
I can see that right here. It's some of the bullet points on this. But can you look? I don't want to change the whole topic of this video, but can you just give the audience again? You said that you have some background in this, so in a short, condensed version of why you feel that it's not.
Yeah. Okay. So two things. One, the insistence that it's one person, because they would say that everything couldn't be done by one person, I think is ridiculous. I know when it comes to victims, if you have two people, particularly if they're friends, one's not going to run away and abandon the other one. There's a lot of reasons why only one person, even with or without a gun or even a knife, could have pulled that off. So that part, I can talk in more detail about that later. If we have questions, I can answer that. But in terms of why I don't think it was a ritual, one, because it doesn't follow any rules of any known rituals. And if you're going to do a human sacrifice, it's probably going to follow some tenets of it, particularly if it's a group. If it was one person who had lost their mind and they just were kind of had read on Odinism or whatever and just started making stuff up. Maybe that's possible, even if that feels unlikely. But the idea that it's organized and that it's a group of white national extremists, to me, makes no sense, because that's not really the MO of the extremist groups. Most of them are wanting to, if they're going to do terrorist sort of acts, which would be, this could be a terroristic act, that would be a message behind it. And this doesn't fit any kind of coherent message, nor do they do sacrifices or even rituals, really, at least in my experience, from what I know about a lot of the Odinists. Like, they don't do this type of ritual. So there's no coherent sense to make of it, particularly if they're saying it's a group with a bunch of people involved. So I just don't buy that.
Ed, I wish I could have showed you a face while he was saying that. I got to go to you now, Ed.
No, I mean, I'm on the same page. I'm on the same page.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, like that, if there was a, you know, ritualistic society like that, you'd have, like you said, a group, and there would be evidence of multiple people around these bodies at that scene.
Yeah.
Okay. That should have been readily visible. Okay.
And it would have lined up with a holiday or something. There's just no,
right.
You can't just, it just doesn't make any sense. There's no coherent sense to be made of the argument being made. They've given us too much information anyway to be able to agree with it.
So I'm gonna, so I can get this back on track. I'm gonna have everybody. I'm asking you guys to go over and watch his video on the Delphi case. It's informative. It's 30 something minutes long, and he goes into detail. So if you want more on that, Dr. G, his link, I made it easy for everybody, because as you know, people, they want things that they could just click on and go to. So if you go into my description, there's a clickable link that'll take you right to Dr. G's YouTube channel and also his website. Hey, one more thing before we wrap up. And I want to go to the questions. I'm definitely going to go to the live comments and ask you some of their questions. You did another video 7 days ago, and you talked about Jesse in that video. I don't think that was the topic of your video, because it said Ruby Franke, Jodi. Oh, yeah, you have her name in there. Jodi and Jesse Hildebrandt, new shocking behavior and body language insights. Can I play that little clip towards the end where you talk about Jesse? Because I thought that was really a good piece there. So let's take a listen. This is Dr. G giving his analogy of Jesse's statement.
Children in this way is a gift. It's such an amazing thing to do for your children. And that is a very perverse way to look at exactly what she's talking about doing. Now we're going to watch part of an interview with Jodi Hildebrandt. I'm going to go ahead and let you know that I do believe that what she's saying is in fact true. Her body language is consistent with someone who is not showing any signs of deception. And in addition to that, thematically, there's some things that are very consistent with bits of video we just watched. Let's go ahead and watch her talk about what her experiences were with Jodi Hildebrandt. And if I didn't say it already, this is in fact Jodi Hildebrandt's niece.
Yeah.
And so before she starts talking, for the audience, this is from 14 years in the past. So what she's describing is what Jodi Hildebrandt did to her 14 years ago.
I was left in her care when I was a teenager for a little under a year. The things that I experienced while living with Jodi, I experienced being tied. I experienced being duct taped. I experienced being blindfolded. I experienced severe isolation.
This is from 14 years ago. How the was this woman able to operate like this? I'll tell you how, because when this girl went to the authorities, she was dismissed as a wacko, unfortunately. And that's the sad, harsh reality of this.
I experienced severe emotional, spiritual, and psychological abuse.
So if we're to look at her body language as she talks about this, you know, she's using her hands for emphasis. She seems to really feel a lot of what she's talking about. You know, once again, I don't really typically analyze victims a lot, so I'm not going to provide a deep analysis of this, other than I will tell you I don't see any signs of deception. The way that she's emphatic, the way that her body's been open, the way that she's consistent with the way that she speaks, there's nothing that she shies away from or tries to ignore. The way that she does this really does show somebody who is talking about memories they've had, experiences they've had. The way that they bring these things up does not seem the same as someone who is fabricating things or coming up with things on the spot.
I experienced severe emotional, spiritual, and psychological abuse. I experienced the being told I shouldn't be around other people, being told that I was dangerous to be around. If someone spoke to me directly, if I wasn't wearing duct tape on my mouth.
All right. Now,
So I want to just say this mirrors what her kids, Jodi, not only Jodi Hildebrandt, but Ruby Frankie's kids were saying. Mom, I have no friends. That's the isolation. She would take the phones away from them. The kid was arguably in either a panic room or placed somewhere where he couldn't get out. Finally did get out. But you're hearing this young woman describe what she went through 14 freaking years ago. Doc.
And it's all about control, right? I mean, that's what it is. It's I'm going to control you. And if I can't, you're going to experience my rage, basically.
Yeah, she breaks these people down. She just breaks them.
Now, I remember when I went through these courses with the FBI profilers and so forth, and I remember them talking about the eye movements. You know, when you're accessing memories versus accessing creative areas of your brain, trying to make something up. And you know, like I said, I'm no expert in this. Did you see what I'm seeing here?
So the eye movements, that's one of the few areas with body language I actually don't study because I haven't found enough consistent research that I'm comfortable saying this is an area that I'm will sort of practice in. So there, I believe that it's legitimate, but it's not something I'm that knowledgeable about. So I think that you're probably going to know more than I will.
No, because I was taught that when you're giving, you know, like she's giving an interview and you're putting your eyes to the left and up, you're accessing your memory. When you
I've heard that as well. I think that's there probably is legitimacy to that. But
right, when you're going to the right and down, you're making something up.
But people can also, well, anyway, yeah. So
I mean, you know, well, it is what it is.
In fairness to this here, with my setup, I have a monitor to my right and a monitor to my left, so I have to look at both monitors. So people don't judge me. Doc, don't come at me. All right, so there's just a little bit more to this. Do you mind if I play it right to the end? Yeah. Because I admire your analysis here. It's true, you know, it's coming from your experience, and a lot of people have seen this interview, and some people feel both ways, a little bit different about it. But I felt the same way that you are feeling here. I feel that she did tell the truth because I watched 3 hours and like 50 minutes. She gave an interview on the Mormon podcast, and it was unbelievable. I listened to it all last night. So
she speaks. There's nothing that she shies away from or tries to ignore. The way that she does this really does show somebody who is talking about memories they've had, experiences they've had. The way that they bring these things up does not seem the same as someone who is fabricating things or coming up with things on the spot.
I experienced severe emotional, spiritual, and psychological abuse. I experienced the being told I shouldn't be around other people, being told that I was dangerous to be around. If someone spoke to me directly, if I wasn't wearing duct tape on my mouth.
All right, now see the way that she did that. If I wasn't wearing duct tape on my mouth, the way that naturally came out, that looks like it's going back to a memory, which is something else that lends credence to the fact that these are things that she has experienced. And based on what she's saying, I have no reason to question any of this.
If someone spoke to me directly, if I wasn't wearing duct tape on my mouth, I had to just stare at them and not respond. She also, and this is like a very deep connection and why I chose to come forward to the media rather than just staying with the podcast. She accused me of being a sex addict. She accused me of being addicted to masturbation to the point where I wasn't allowed to, I mentioned this on the podcast, to the point where I wasn't allowed to use tampons. I never was allowed privacy unless I was isolated. So that included the bathroom. I was never allowed to have the door closed.
So hearing her talk about this, particularly in the context of the clip I showed earlier, goes to suggest that sometimes they may overly sexualize things that are in no way, shape, or form sexual. The clip I showed earlier was the worst possible example I can think of suggesting something that could be considered a sexual act. But that's consistent with what she's saying now, which is managing her period is going to be somehow seen as sexual. Like, it's so bizarre and so deranged, yet so consistent with the idea of over-sexualizing things that are in no way, shape, or form sexual. Jodi Hildebrandt does appear to be a believable historian. There's nothing that she said that had me questioning whether or not any of it was true. It fits the patterns and themes and logic with other things that have been discussed by them on the Connections Classroom. The most concerning thing is the idea that they are teaching people to engage in these behaviors, to abandon any sort of parental instincts that they have, to push away any feelings of any closeness, and to engage in pain and punishment. That's the way that I interpreted it. If other people have different interpretations, please let me know.
So this is why I feel like the children were definitely, I mean, they're looking for their medical records, right? They subpoenaed the medical records for the minor children. Investigators have to look at if there was any type of sexual component with Jodi Hildebrandt, with her command and control of these kids. And also just this in itself, for 14 years, she's been doing this. So how much has she morphed in the 14 years? Doc,
Sure.
thoughts?
Yeah, the more of an audience she has, the more people are listening to her, the more bold she may become. I mean, we see this with all types of people who are doing criminal or abusive behavior. So, when you think about, I'm not trying to say, this is just the way that I think. So I apologize. But when you think about serial killers, the way that they go from smaller crimes, they tend to build up to when they start doing really awful stuff. So we do see a progression and escalation from the earlier points to now. So 14 years is a long time. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was an escalation if she is in fact guilty of the things that she's been accused of.
100%. Ed, you have anything before we wrap? I mean, I could have went on for a whole nother hour with this.
Yeah, I know, but these things are really triggering. I got to tell you, it's like very disturbing, and I'm going to be thinking about this craziness.
The doc takes your GHI, so maybe he could give you a session after this.
We'll debrief everybody after watching this clip.
Yeah. Let's go to the chat real quick, and we'll wrap it up. I promise. I know I keep saying it, but let's look at the chat. Hashtag Dr.G, hashtag DutyRon, hashtag Ed. Let's put a couple of hashtags of pats on the back for Ed. Hope you feel better.
Damn it, Ron. He's a doctor. Let's go.
That's true. That's true. He did ask me for my insurance information before we only kidding. That's not true. Let's see. Jesse, a couple of things with Jesse. Here's one for the body language. Does their body language show that they're making the stuff up as they go, or is that or that they fully understand? I think that she's asking about Jodi and Jesse.
I think that they have very concrete principles that I feel like every word they use is a bad word now, but anyway, they use the word principles a lot. I think they have very concrete principles that they follow, which is this concept of distortion, this concept of truth. They may come up with stuff on the fly. They may come up with examples and stuff like that on the fly, but I think that they know that it all comes back to reinforcing the truth or distortion or whatever. So I think they have some structure there. They really do. I don't think they make it up entirely.
Yeah. And seeing stuff like this, not just from Jesse, but from previous clients, how she broke up families and separated the husbands, divorced eventually. And I'm sure Ruby Franke and her husband, Kevin, if this would have went on, she would have been divorced from him because he had no communication with the kids. This is according to his attorney, and there was no communication, period. He was instructed to separate from them, and this was what will make it better. Some kind of not exactly those words, but words to that effect.
Yeah,
and it's just so bizarre. Like I think about, I'm a father, and if my wife took my kids from me and said, "I'm going with some woman, and you're not going to be able to talk to our boys anymore," I'd be like, "Oh hell no, no." I'm going to be spending weekends with them. I'm going to be whatever, but you're not going to just take them and disappear. Here's a hashtag Dr. G with the thumbs up. I hope everyone is going over and subscribing to his channel on YouTube. Here's one from Sweet One. She says, "Dr. G, do you think Jodi may have had a client that had died due to her treatment plan?"
I would have to see what I won't go that far because I don't know.
None of us.
I would think that there certainly could be people that were caused harm should she have used these types of interventions and therapy.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking that she's teaching these practices to adults, and then they're going back to their children and then putting into practice what she taught them. So there might be some children that got hurt because of these teachings.
Yeah,
it's very possible.
I mean, we see Russell, he's deep lacerations, emaciated. These are dangerous people. Hashtag Dr. G. Did she get into this field? This is Jodi Hildebrandt with bad intentions, or did she hate her job so much and all these clients became unhuman to her?
So the vast majority of people that go into counseling and psychology and all of that, most are pretty compassionate folks. And we all deal with people that are challenging. I mean, I've worked in, as I've said, I worked in forensic settings. I've worked in hospitals. I've worked in a lot of settings with people that were very challenging. I've had people attack me. And so if it became too much, as a healthy person, I would just leave the field. I'd say, I just can't do this anymore. I'm going to go, do something else. I don't think that anybody drove Jodi to behave in the ways that she's been accused of. I think that and this could be a whole nother conversation, but I think that a lot of people with those types of issues are kind of born that way. There may be experiences that make it worse, but you've got to have the neurological underpinnings to be able to engage in that kind of sadistic behavior. So.
Thank you for that, Doc. I think, Ed, do you see anything else? Black Rose, we have to ask her questions. Dr. G, hashtag Dr. D explains. A lot of people want to know about your thoughts on the husband.
I've been so for a couple of reasons, I've been hesitant to talk a lot about the husband, just because of he hasn't been charged with anything at this point. It's a complicated situation, and I just don't know enough about the husband. I've really been focused more on Ruby and Jodi and people in that sphere, and so I'm trying not to comment too much on the husband. I've got my own thoughts about it, but I'm going to wait until later on to talk more specifically about him once we see how this plays out a little more.
All right, let's rapid fire while we got you on the full screen. Hashtag DutyRon, hashtag Dr. G. How do you think this went on for so long without being reported? Thanks.
From my understanding, it was reported, but people didn't follow up or take it seriously, which doesn't surprise me. And I don't say that in a negative way against DFACS or any of those kinds of organizations. It's very hard to follow up with something like that when you have a family like the Frankies. It's not as easy as you would think for child services to go in and take children out of the home and all of that. So it's complicated.
Ed, like you and I talked about on our last stream, a lot of these reports went unfounded. 15 times the police were called out to Ruby Frankie's home, and it was all unfounded. As a matter of fact, one time, this is all not just me talking, this is part of public record, they went out there and the kids were alone and they didn't do anything. They left. They looked in and they saw that there was an adult or a child that looked to be of age, and they just took off, the police. So 15 times, many people, there was that change.org petition that was out there. There were people jumping up and down. And as you know, Dr. G and Ed and I know this from being a YouTube content creators, if we were to show us inflicting pain or being nasty to our children, we would have police knocking at our doors because people would be calling on us, Yeah. And there's no question that some of those 2.3 million people called, but there was a portion of them that were cheerleading this kind of crazy behavior, because some of her best viewed videos is when she humiliated her daughter and when she humiliated her children in different various ways. And she knew that, and she homed in on it. That's what made her even so much more demonic in my eyes, is that she, before even getting hooked up with Jodi Hildebrandt, she knew that YouTube, she would get more views if she was nasty to her kids. It's really sick. All right, we're going to wrap it up. So, Dr. G, I always ask this of every guest that comes on. Will you please come back and join Ed and I again?
Anytime. Absolutely. I had a blast here. So please, anytime.
Awesome.
Sounds great. We enjoyed it too. I learned a lot.
And Dr. Your YouTube channel has just been so informative for me in the short period of time that I've watched you. Continue to do what you're doing. Everybody loves all the content in the video. Ed's going to add you to his big Rolodex. He's got a huge Rolodex. He's going to put you right in there. So again, there goes Kara. What is that? Is that how the show ends? Kara comes in and just starts barking.
She's like, "You got to take me for a walk, Dad."
Guys and girls, don't forget, Ed Wallace and I are on all things social media. One word, DutyRon. Make sure you hit the thumbs up. Subscribe to our community. Subscribe to the great doctor here. Dr. G Explains on YouTube. You can't go wrong. It's linked in the description. On behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, and also Dr. G, we want to thank you for watching. make sure you keep the victims and families first. Always put them first at the forefront, because those are the folks who have to live with this horror going forward. These 6 kids of Ruby Franke and the people who are surrounded, that are good, that surrounded those kids, are all affected by it. So let's keep them at the forefront. And thank you again. Stand by for a message from our cop team. Thank you all for joining, and thank you to the replay viewers. Peace and love, guys.